All right, welcome everyone to the Collective Intelligence Block Party and to this very special Divine Feminine segment. I'm going to now happily turn it over to my queen, Melissa, and my sisters, Jacque and Mayra, to lead us and to introduce our special guest, Dr. Siegfried. So please take it away, ladies, and welcome everyone.
Thank you, Jamin. Good morning, everyone. So great to see you. I would love to start before dear Jacque introduces our wonderful guest speaker with a poem. We're starting to start our morning sessions with poetry and song before we actually start our guest speakers on their trail. And today, I really took my time waking up and really allowed the morning to unfold me rather than me unfolding the morning. And because I allowed that to happen, there are these beautiful synchronicities that have happened. And I woke up remembering my dream. And the end of the dream was looking out across the mud flats because we live up from the beach here. And there was an animal that looked like an Arctic fox, or it could have been a coyote or a little small wild dog. And it looked as if it was stuck in the mud. And I said, "Oh, sweetheart, can I come and help you?" And the dog and I communicated telepathically. And he just turned and he started to walk, and I could see his back leg, his hind leg was stuck in the mud. And as soon as my words or my thoughts to help him touched him, the leg just went pop straight out of the mud. It was really wonderful. And that was quite an interesting symbolic dream, because I think we all think we're stuck in the mud, right now. But actually, if we have faith, we are not really stuck in the mud. And this brought me to a poem that I love very much. Let me backtrack a second. So following the dream, what I did was I went outside onto the deck after splashing my face with water 100 times this morning, cold water. I did not put on the electric lights. I left myself in the dim of morning. I did not look at any computers or cell phone. I just stayed in the sacred space. And I went outside and I was reminded that we are all standing on holy ground. And I looked out across the landscape and I was reminded that all of this creation is really prayer, and it's holy, it's sacred. I then went to one of my favorite poets, David Whyte, and I just free opened the book, and I will read the poem that arrives this morning. It's called Opening of Eyes. The day I saw beneath dark clouds the passing light over the water, and I heard the voice of the world speak out, I knew then, as I had before, life is no passing memory of what has been, nor the remaining pages in a great book waiting to be read. It is the opening of eyes long closed. It is the vision of far-off things seen for the silence they hold. It is the heart, after years of secret conversing, speaking out loud in the clear air. It is Moses in the desert, fallen to his knees before the lit bush. It is the man throwing away his shoes as if to enter heaven, and finding himself astonished, opened at last, fallen in love with solid ground. And the imagery of Moses taking off his shoes is really this reference to the fact that we are all standing upon sacred ground, holy ground. We don't have to go anywhere but where we are to be standing on holy ground. And this is such a big reminder and lesson for humanity that we are in paradise. We are standing on sacred ground. Now let's live it. Let's treat it this way. So I just thought that'd be a beautiful way to start this morning off. And now to bring you all into this mood, I want to just orchestrate a little exercise. This is super fun. We're all going to take a deep breath.
And should we ask everyone to unmute?
Oh yeah, you can all unmute because this is super fun.
Everyone unmute, and then we'll mute again at the end. Speak
as loudly as you can or not. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep breath in. We're going to do this twice. Deep breath in and exhale. And then we're just going to say 10 times, wow, wow, wow. And then we're going to take a deep breath in after 10 times. Exhale, and we're going to do it a second time. And then we stop. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. Deep breath in. Wow. 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 Awesome.
I'm sorry, I struggled because I'm in a public park on my own. So.
I get the whole of everyone doing it with you, Stephanie. All right. Well, you can feel the results. Jacque, over to you, sweet love.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is such an honor and such a pleasure to see all of you here. This is my family, home away from home. I love you all. I had the privilege and the honor of meeting Dr. Baumbach in person in Mexico at his beautiful ashram, and it was a transformative experience. Thank you to my sister, Mayra, who arranged that for me. I would love for her then to have the honor of introducing Dr. Siegfried to us.
Good morning, everybody. It's so nice to see your amazing faces. I miss you guys from Saturday all the way to Thursday, and I'm excited to be here again. Well, it is my honor, and I'm very humbled that Dr. Siegfried Baumbach accepted the invitation to be here with us. I went through his, in a way, his resume, and I feel like we have to almost invite him to introduce everything that he does because he is a gem. He is a nutritionist. He is the creator of holography iriology, so he knows how to read eyes, the iris of the eye. He's a master in that. And he's the vice president of Iriology International. He was a student of Dr. Bernard Jensen, who was a very known iriologist and nutritionist doctor here in the United States. And what else? Dr. Siegfried Baumbach, you have so many things right here. The creator of yoga art. He's a musician also. He develops sonosophia, I believe, if that's the correct way of pronouncing it, which is, it means the wisdom of sound. He's an amazing artist, an amazing nutritionist, an amazing human being. He is, in a way, my spiritual teacher also. And he has an amazing place that we all call heaven. It's in the skirts of Iztac. And he is the founder and director of Iztac ashram. And so many things for him to talk about. So I would like to give him the space for him to talk, and it's going to be a beautiful conversation to get to know him, without mentioning also that he is the first disciple of Sadhguru Jose Manuel Estrada from the Supreme Order of Aquarius. And it is just an honor. It's an honor to have him here with us, with the Divine Feminine. Thank you, Dr. Siegfried. Welcome.
Thank you very much, all of you, and Mayra and Jacque, and getting to know, more of you people here. And yeah, it's good to share things, especially if we interchange, because that's part of the Aquarian thing, to share, to serve and to share. And so we can be part of a different world order, because they are the people now that get into this whole new world order thing, but on the dark side. Even those who want to fight against it, they are on the dark side. So it's not a matter of fighting against anything. It's just a matter of positioning ourselves to be aware where we are and where we want to be, and what is the direction in the future, where we are going in humanity. And so we just can decide where we want to be and how we want to add more light without fighting the dark, just adding light. I think with that we have enough to do. So it's really fun to be here. And you see behind me, it's a picture, but it's a picture of the place where I am right now. And what you see behind me is the Iztaccíhuatl. This is a name in Nahuatl. And the meaning is, Iztac means white, and Cihuatl means woman. So from the Aztec times, this mountain, which is 5 volcanoes, was called the White Woman, because she usually is snow covered, even though in these days with the global warming, the snow has gone down and the glaciers have gone down, but it's still it has also a name. And there's a book on it that came out about 45 years ago. And the title of this book is The Sleeping Woman, because it was also called The Sleeping Woman Has to Give Birth. And it's a novel, but it has a lot of truth in it. And it's very interesting because it has to do with the change in these times, the change of culture, and what this mountain and Mexico in the American continent has to do with it, because the American continent is kind of the synthesis between East and West. It is not East and it's not West. It's a synthesis. It's a new thing, and it's the continent where the new culture will arise. And so Canada and the United States are kind of the head part, and Mexico is the hard part, and then we have the Andes in the south. So it's the whole mountain chain from the Rocky Mountains to the Sierra Madres in Mexico, these big volcanoes here in Mexico, because we have the Citlaltépetl, which is called the mountain of the star, which is more than 19,000 feet high. Then we have the Popocatépetl, which is right next to it, which is the masculine aspect, and which is also 18,000 and some feet high. And then the Iztaccíhuatl, where we are right in front here. And in fact, tonight it snowed a lot on the mountain. And so we have it very white and very beautiful this morning. And just like Melissa said also, the morning evolves if you just attend and really put attention to what's happening and what's going on. Every day is a special day. And yeah, I totally agree with this holy ground we are standing on. And I think the topic that is today has to do a lot with it, to be aware of where we are standing. I many times talk about what has been really the message of all the big avatars, of the Christ, of the Buddhas, of the Quetzalcoatl. And in just a sentence, for me it is to show us that we are, or that the kingdom of heaven, as it has been called in the Christian religion, is right within us. And it's right where we are, and how to enter. And if we get out of it, how to get back in. Because when do we get out? When we get angry, when we are despaired, when we are, with fear. That's because it's a matter of inside. Of course, we can have beautiful environments also, but that doesn't guarantee that we are inside this space. And so, in a way, it is to learn all the time and every day how to enter again. And I think one of the things is to be really grateful, to be really thankful for whatever is at this moment. Not, I thank you for giving me what I wanted. No, it's what I already have. Thank you for what you have given me. And the you is whatever each one wants to think and feel. It's the infinite intelligence, is the cosmic forces, is whatever word you want to use, or whatever is your understanding, because that's the only important thing. I say, like in this age in Aquarius, we just entered the second degree of Aquarius, because the new age started the 21st of March in 1948. And 1 degree of the 30 degrees is 72 years. So we just a month ago, a little bit more, the 21st of March in 2020, we entered the second degree of Aquarius. And that is very significant. And together with all the astrological aspects of the conjunction of Pluton with Saturn and other things, it is a very special time. And wow, if anyone doubts it still, just look around, It's a very special time. And of course, there's a big test to humanity. And but now we have to look towards where we are going. And if we want to be part of what 2,000 years ago we called the evangelist. But the evangelist means the one who brings the good news. So let's be all of those who bring the good news, to share and to see the future in a way, and where we already are right now, in spite of everything, that we can be really fine. And if we are fine inside, then we inspire other people to go back to their center, to their balance, to their inner peace. And now from there we can go to the topic of today, this divine feminine. And one could say, why do you ask a man to talk about the divine feminine? Well, precisely because it's not a matter of gender. It's not a matter of women or men. The divine feminine is in all of us. Yeah, the man may have it a little bit more difficult to discover it because, he covers it up with, I'm strong and I'm reasonable, and why are you so sensitive, and criticizing. But then if he looks around, he begins to learn his own sensitivity, his own intuition. And he learns it many times from a woman, not always, but he learns it many times from a woman. And that's part of, for me, also of the meaning of the couple. We are not just there for attraction and for pleasure and for children and for having a home and having our little car and our little washing machine and our little TV and our little this and that, it's all fine, all this. But obviously now when we look a little bit closer, it's not the meaning of life. And if we start really asking, and now many people in this moment, in these times, are beginning to ask, well, if I thought what I have, what is my power, my fame, my whatever, my bank account and so forth, it's not secure at all. Because everyone looks for, can you assure me, can you guarantee me the government has to make sure that the virus doesn't spread? There is no security at all, because everything is totally changing all the time. And there, I like this expression of the wisdom of uncertainty. If I can open up to this and say, okay, I'm not really in control. I can do my part to be, in the flow of things, but I'm not in control, and whatever I have is not guaranteeing me anything. So I open up to the wisdom of uncertainty, and that's already a female trait, because it's the right brain that starts to understand these things. And now I want first, before really going into this, we all can observe around us and try to become aware of what is really the masculine traits and what is the feminine traits. And well, there are basic things, and as we said in the beginning, actually as a man and the woman, we have all of them in us. The women have the masculine traits and the feminine traits, and the man has it. But which are these? Well, if we take it together with the elements, with the four elements, the first universal kingdom, the mineral kingdom, represents the physical body. And the men are more, or the masculine side is more identified with the physical body, the physical strength. Then we have the next one is water, the vegetable kingdom, which represents the emotional body, which is feminine. Then we have the third one, the animal kingdom, through the element air, and that's again masculine. And the fourth one, fire, it's again feminine, is the spiritual part. So we have the emphasis on the masculine side, on the physical, and on the left brain, reasonable part. And then we have the feminine on the other side, which is emotional, sensitive, and spiritual, because that represents our spiritual possibility. So if we observe, and also, we live in a world of polarity, of course, in the manifestation, and our perception through the five senses is like if that was all. And we are discovering more and more that it is not. And that's a great thing about it. It's okay, I'm living in this, I have a vehicle, I have a physical body, an emotional body, a mental body, and I'm a spiritual being where from I can connect more and more to my inside and to everything outside also. But then again, also looking about the feminine and masculine. Masculine is external, left brain, reason, science, philosophy, all these are masculine traits. Feminine is more insight, is right brain, is space, is creativity, is intuition. And so we have already two big traits. Now, if we look at our world, and it's very evident for me at this moment, the way humanity and all the governments in the world, or almost all, have reacted to this test. What have they done? What have they been talking about? Everything was about control. Controlling with the contingency, controlling how we fight against the virus, and everything is external, on the outside, masculine. Our whole medicine is totally masculine, because we still say, if science says so, then it must be true. And now all of a sudden, with everything that's moving around, we discover that science, not the scientists, but science is such a corrupt thing today, that we cannot say anymore because science says it, now it has to be true. No, there are forces that that control what can be published and who is going to be reinforced and receives support so he can investigate. And there's the corruption, because the corruption is always in the wanting to control others, wanting to have power over others, you know. And so that's a totally masculine thing. And nowadays we are looking at the uprising first of feminism, even though this is not a thing, our talk about feminism. It's about the divine feminine force in us. And yeah, that will be the next step where we go. And now if we look at the whole thing, for instance, I have been watching, you know, what here in Mexico the government is doing. And first they were like, okay, let's address it from the most centered part, but then they were totally absorbed by the rest of the hysteria in the world and starting to constrict and thinking that they would you know, they would control something like this. And if we look at it closely, we can see there is nothing to be controlled, and we don't have to also to fight against, or we have to look at the bad people who manipulated the virus and whatever is circling around. And then we go into the same thing. But if we look at it closely, the common sense, which is right brain, which is feminine, and the intuition and the observation tells us, well, that we have, first of all, a proper intelligence in our own body that looks always for balance, for homeostasis. And the immune system, of course, is part of this. And then I was listening to them. Yeah, and we have now so many respirators, and we have so many beds here, and so many this and that, and we shut down whatever else, everything outside. And no one ever really talked about this internal intelligence of our own immune system. And therefore, because of a proper lifestyle of eating right, of doing exercise, of having the right mind and heart set, you know, of realizing, you know, my security is not out there, it's in me. And that's all feminine. So we have, and now all of a sudden the extreme masculine approach forced us to go more inside. That's a very curious thing, because now all of a sudden stay at home, you know, and what are you going to do at home? Well, our mind is in such a way that we want to keep distracting ourselves. Distracting of what? Of our own interior, of our own silence. We cannot support silence. Silence is feminine. Space is feminine. So all of a sudden, well, people get more hysteric because all of a sudden the children couldn't go to school anymore, and now they had to confront their own confinement and their own thing of how to go more inside. And yeah, and some started to look for answers in this and did the right thing. But on the general, it still will take some time. And so people who are in this frequency will be sharing what can be done about all this. And that really, for me, this meaning of the mountain, the sleeping woman that has to give birth, is nothing more than the energies of the masculine and the feminine now in Aquarius will come into perfect balance. It's not that one dominates the other, but the masculine will stop dominating the feminine energies, and that is in women as in men. Also, when I listen to a woman scientist, yeah, if you know, just the other day when I was in this speech, I heard this, you know, well, the science has not proven it. I don't believe anymore that things are true because science proves it. No, for me, something is true when my internal intuition says, of the two theories that science presents to me, because I have seen this, they presented and it was all the arguments and it was all the proofs, but they are two different and opposed theories and many things. And I have to decide which one is the good one for me at that moment. And we see in science, after a while, after some years, oh, well, we made an error, it's not so. But it's not that it was not so. We add things. And that doesn't negate the other one. It's just we are growing in every direction. And so if we go in this whole thing that the balance of the divine feminine, and while divine is feminine, is divine is masculine. What is not divine is when we go into one polarity and one polarity wants to dominate the other. Then it's not divine anymore, because then we're not in the center and above. Then we polarize. And the polarization always gives conflict. And what we do want is peace. Peace in ourselves, in the interior, being in the center, in the eye of the hurricane, where there is total calm. And everything can be moving around. Just this morning, we were in our ceremony, we always have a little study at the end. And we were studying about this cosmic law of rhythm. How rhythm moves everything. But then, if we are not conscious of things, then we are moved by our emotions. It's just like, in one of these, I don't know, you call it in English, these fairs, where all kinds of mechanical games, and there's this big ship that that moves from one side to the other, and you have 20 people in there, and it goes on one side and everybody screams, whoa, and they go on the other side and they scream. And then you look up, there's a center, where it's suspended, and then you look up there and you may see someone, and that one of my masters always told it, you see a guy there with a screwdriver, and he's in the hub, in the center of where the whole thing is hanging from, and he's just going, oh, a little bit, while down there they are screaming because they go from one extreme to the other, and he is arranging something, but he's in the center up, where the rhythm is little, it's controlled, it's you move, but you maintain yourself in the center. You're not moved by. And that is kind of what happens when we balance the feminine and the masculine energies in ourselves. And we train this every day again. And we can observe it in our interaction with other people. If we get very emotional about something, and there are these 5 big emotions from the Chinese medicine, they're once related to the lung, which is sadness, then the ones related to the kidneys, which is fear, the ones related to the liver, which is anger, and the ones related to the heart, which is pride, to make a difference, to defend ourselves, and the one with the stomach that has to do with preoccupation, with worries, and so forth. And all of them have a possible transmutation. There are these Taoist Chinese sounds, and the sadness you transmute into osadia. What's the word? Mayra, help me out.
I am listening, and I'm trying to find the word also.
Well, when you dare,
Jalen.
not the daring of the thing, that you have the valor? No.
Valor. Yeah.
Valor? Okay. No?
Correct.
And it's curious, like it's already a triangle, because the Chinese don't say transmute your sadness into happiness, or into to being very, very alegre, because that would be the opposite. But the valor is in a center up, is I can embrace my sadness and be well with my sadness, not negating my sadness, but I transmute into I have the valor to do this. And then with the kidneys, it's something Similar, the fear is transmuted into gentleness with the liver. The anger is transmuted in kindness and bountifulness. The heart is into love and understanding. The stomach into center, into peace and serenity. And this is a way we can transmute our emotions so we can get out of this extreme movement. And that's what we will be learning now. And we will be learning also, like going back to these 4 elements, 2 of them masculine and 2 of them feminine. And also on we have 4 ways also in humanity on how we try to understand the mystery of life. And this is science. It's true science, because it's becoming really more as a pseudoscience. And this is what Ouspensky says. We have pseudoscience, pseudo-philosophy, pseudo-art, and pseudo-religion. And that is if science does not take intuition or revelation as part of the fountain of knowledge, then it's a pseudoscience. And it's a pseudo-philosophy when it's only talk and no application of what we learn. Pseudo-art if it's only pure vanity. Pseudo-religion when it becomes fanatic with dogmas. So now we have to come back to use these 4 ways, but in a true way. And so science needs to open up to the spiritual part, to the mystic part, and many science do that. Scientifics already do that. And like, for instance, for me, quantum science is one of the approaches, because quantum science now proves what the ancient sages have always said, and says, yeah, really everything is connected, and the mind is over the matter and so forth, because I can sit in front of an accelerator of particles and they act according to what I think. So that is a science that is approaching spirituality. But then we have on the feminine side, we have this, religion, or I love more spirituality, because we will have in Aquarius so many religions as we are people on the earth. Everyone has their own personal connection. But that's on the feminine side, the spirituality and art. Art, true art, where the artist connects what is above, what is below, what he can touch into, and he becomes a true server of the people to transmit to them what he is discovering. And he uses his ability in music or in dance or in whatever to transmit this to other people. And so art is a universal language that can lead to transcendence. But let's look at this for a moment. We have these 4 elements, the earth, the water, the air, and the fire, and with the physical body, emotional body, mental body, spiritual body. So what is our lesson? If we really ask what's the sense of life, because that is what we really need to do, because so far, really the big majority of people seem to believe that the meaning of life, the sense of life, is to having things, to have success, to be somebody. And even though these are all things that will go away, they are very nice, but they are not the meaning of life, Have a good car, have a good house, have travels, everything, but you won't take none of this. But if you really ask the question, and we say, the answer lies before the questions, but you have to place the right question. And the right question is, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of my life? Why I'm here? What is my mission? And I remember, the expression of Edward Bach, the founder of the Bach flower remedies. And he said, life is no more than one day in the college. And that's beautiful. So if it's one day in the college, we have a study plan. We have, to see where we are good at, where we need to learn. So let's take care of this and be really honest with it. And other people will, they will always show us what else we have to learn. And so we can really dedicate of being more observant and put more attention. So we will learn every day. And we apply what we learn in our daily lives. And this will really mature us and will give us a different cosmovision in this sense. And so the life has meaning. And that is, yes, this is what the death cannot take away. No, this is only, this will have to change. We know that. So what's the problem? Now with the coronavirus, everything comes, because the control comes because of the fear of death. And what does that mean? We do not have an understanding of life. We think that with death, life stops. Well, it does not. So if we can see that, then what's the problem? What's the problem if we die earlier or later? We're all sick and medicine says, oh, we are saving lives. Well, what they do many times is prolonging the suffering of someone. And they said, oh, we saved this life because they lived another 6 months miserable with their pains and because attached of the idea of life, which they never understand. Because so many people, they are born, they grow up, they mature, and then finally they grow old and they die, and then on their stone, what you call that, they write, he did all this, he was born and so forth. He never even knew why. So that's a very pure statement for any one of us, if we never knew what we were doing here, just to have pleasure. Oh, pleasure is good, but it's not the sense of life. So have good pleasure, but have healthy pleasures. And that we can have once we get out of just the survival mode. That's a first instinctive thing that all of us have, our animal part for survival. And then we discover, we can have more pleasure, and all of a sudden pleasure becomes our thing. And pleasure is great, and it's more on the feminine part even, but let's have healthy pleasures, because if pleasure is the only thing, then we will want to have more and more and more, and then more stimulation, and then more alcohol and more drugs and more this and more that, and we become just attached to things, and then the pleasure turns into pain. So let's go through pleasure, be open to pleasure. It's great. We don't have to deny it anymore, like many did in the religious part of Pisces. Let's open up to pleasure. I have a friend there, she talks about her power pleasure house, where she gains inspiration in this, but in a very healthy way. And so this is the story. Let's try and to get this balance and understand what is the feminine part of us and allow us to come up. And so one of the things we need is silence and attention, so we can listen to, this infinite intelligence is everywhere around us, outside, inside, above. It has no beginning, no end. You can call it whatever you want, but it is there, and we are connected to it, and we are in this, in this paradise, even though there must be many levels of paradise. So we go from one paradise to the other, because this goes on into infinite possibilities. And so if we look at this whole thing, then we understand what, with coming back to the four elements. As a human being, and if this is a day of in the college, so what is what we need to do? Well, we have a physical body. So we have to be attentive to this physical body with nutrition, with exercise, with correct rest, so it functions the best we can. And the physical body, of course, the physical body has to do a lot with emotions. If our emotions are out of balance and there's a lot of angriness and so forth, then it will affect also the physical body. So we have also nutrition and exercise on the emotional level, on the emotional body. And what would be the nutrition in the emotional? Well, it's beauty, it's nature, it's colors, it's beautiful music. All this nurtures our emotional body, and we have to select. You know, sometimes you have to look at an ugly movie, you know, where it's only shooting and whoa. It's not that we cannot see this. If in fact now, if we are in a balance, it won't affect us. But if it's all we see, no, everything is violence, then that will nurture us from that side. And inside we become, you know, when something puts it into a test, we become right away edgy and nervous and not aggressive and so forth. So be selective, nurture yourself every day. Like one of my teachers, Dr. Jensen, he always said that every day before you go to work, look at a beautiful flower, for instance, you know. And besides, well, Mayra said I should tell you about what I'm doing. I'm not doing iridology on a diagnostic level. I'm not interested in yes, beautiful, the flower, right. I'm not interested in disease anymore. I'm interested in the person, no, and what we can improve in you, in the physical, in the emotional, and how can we exercise the emotional? And basically, it's through serving others. I like this poem of Rumi, where he says, "Well, I slept and I dreamt that life was happiness. I woke up and I found out that life was service. I began to serve and I found happiness." So even though it's on many levels, but if I incorporate consciously service in my life, I will be more happy. I will be more balanced in emotion. And also if there's something that comes to me which is not so good because it doesn't coincide with my expectations of how things should be, because we are all so much slaves of what I like and what I not like and what is good and what is bad. But these are programs in the polarity only. And so if I can go beyond this, and that's also what Rumi says, beyond the good and the bad, there is a field. And we will meet there. So what we are doing is to balance things, to become aware. And so we go back to the physical, to the emotional body, and we go to the mental body. What would be the exercise in the mental? Well, the silence, the meditation, the contemplation, taking time to really be there in the present and observe and listen, walk consciously, eat consciously, do whatever we do consciously. And our nutrition on the mental plane, of course, is our information. So, yeah, you can switch on your television and all the coronavirus news all day and get totally intoxicated, with this. Or you switch it on once in a while and say, oh, yeah, those stupid guys, they're still in this thing of thinking they can control it this way. Well, okay, I just observe, where humanity is at. It's like taking the temperature of humanity in a way, which it sounds a little, but that's what it is. I mean, and it's reflecting ourselves. We are part of this, we're not above or anything. We're just part of it. And we just have to wake up to this. So mental information is important as the nutrient for the mental plane. So why not take, besides our news, and our movies and our things, take books of people who through the ages have really said things that were important, like the Tao Te Ching, for instance, or like the Bhagavad Gita, or like contemporary books like The Prophet of Khalil Gibran or whatever. You know, you have so many great things there. And so why don't you read 5 or 10 minutes every day to get inspired and think about it, you know, and do that as almost as a ritual. Because they say if you read every day for 15 minutes about the heart, in 5 years, you will be the most expert in hearts. So why not do that, you know, with wisdom of all ages? And you just take in a little bit, and it's not for you to repeat just, because then you become a what's the bird? You know, well, you know what I mean.
Right.
You know, that just repeats things. No, the important thing is to really reflect upon these, and then during the day observe what of this, what I have understood, I can apply in my daily life with the interaction with other people, with my family, with my couple, with my children, with my co-workers and so forth. And how am I being creative with this, and how does it inspire me in this day to grow a little bit more, to get out of my automatic response to everything. You know, I get up a certain hour in the morning, get in the car, get to the work, do my job, and get tired, get back, sit in front of the television and drink a beer. Okay, this is a routine, and we have to get out of our routines and to be able to experience life each day new from a different point, even though it's the same thing. We do every day the same ceremony, but every day this ceremony and these prayers and mudras and mantras are different to me. Every day I've been doing it for more than 40 years, and every day I discover something more, some more meaning in this. What am I saying there? You know, if I wish the peace in all the hearts of all human beings, what does it really mean to me? It means, first of all, what's the story of my peace in my heart? And how can I really act when I get in contact with other people to improve their peace also? It's not only, yeah, I sit here and I look very holy and all this. No, that's not the spirituality. The spirituality is a practical application of knowledge. But well, we were in the mental. Let's go to the spiritual then. And in the spiritual, we have an exercise. And the exercises are rituals or ceremonies, which remind us of the order, because ritual, rit, means order. And it reminds us of the cosmic order, so we can understand better how our universe functions. And we nurture ourselves through friendship. For me, much of the spirituality in Aquarius is friendship. It's our relationship to people and our sharing. So, and the connection. I mean, everything that has to do with spirituality always talks about union. Yoga is union. Religion is reunite, is union. With what? With the material human plane, with the divine mystical plane, which we are already united, but we are not conscious of it. So we make an effort to remind ourselves that we are already part of this, and we just have to have more confidence in this. And that is where now the balance comes in, because now the feminine aspects, the art towards the transcendence, and the spirituality, which is easier today, you know, in all our retreats we have here, you know, on the voice, on the conscious listening of music and of meditation and nature quest retreats we do here in these beautiful mountains. Who shows up? Almost all women. No, very few men, because they're still in, well, this is childish things. This is of girls, you know. How can I do yoga? This until they start find out. And now I have more doctors in here. They, you know, they open up their right brain, and they are different now in this. And some women have been able to convince the macho husbands to come to these retreats. And experience themselves all of a sudden in a way they never had experienced them before, you know? So this is where we're going towards. And now I want to say something more about it, because we live in third dimension. I mean, on the physical thing, you know, one is the point, the other is the line, and the next one is the cube. And that is where we move in our physical plane, on the third dimension. But more and more people talk about fourth dimension, and some talk about fifth dimension, even though many of those who talk about fifth dimension, you have to take it with a little bit of carefulness, because much of it is in the fantasy, and some of the fantasy is induced by what they call the sacred medicines, like, for instance, ayahuasca, peyote, and mushrooms, and these things. Yeah, they do open doors towards different psychic experiences. And as well as one time in the United States, when I was living there, there was one who wrote a book, Ram Dass, he called himself then, and he wrote a book on Be Here Now. And the story was, at that time, LSD was considered like the Christ of the age, because it it gave us experiences of, I would say, like knocking the door on fifth dimension, because fifth dimension in the consciousness level, when it's truly achieved, is when a Christ says, yeah, I'm in this world, but I'm not of this world. I am already in a different dimension. I am in the fifth dimension, the next step after the four, which represents matter and the four elements, and it represents the number 4, the human being. So as a school here on earth, what is our goal? To realize ourselves completely in fourth dimension. And what does that mean? If we work, like I said before, on the physical, on the emotional, and on the mental plane, with nutrition and exercise, very particular for each of these planes, then we become a more balanced being. And now the heart center begins to move, and the right brain begins to wake up. And now the characteristic of fourth dimension is, first of all, people with heart. You know, they don't go just for the reason and for the profit and all this. People with heart, they are going into the solidarity. And now it's a time to really look at this and do this. And also in the time range, past, present, and future, they are more present, and they can work with the past and with the future from the present. Because even the Buddha says, yeah, the past is already gone. The future has not come yet. And the present, you cannot grasp it. It's like a moment that goes. But as much as we are more and more with our attention and what's going on around us, now we can remember the past, learn from the past, from the errors and from the right things, and we can project in the future without getting stuck in, now I have to, to get it. That's again a go-getter, the masculine side. I have to prove to others that my goal is achieved, No, just if there is vision and a special moment of silence, and in fact, Chopra says it, and it's very interesting. In each sentence of thoughts, or in the sentence spoken, there's a pause. Pause. And then comes the next sentence. Pause. And that's the way also the mind works. And in this space of silence between sentences, and that's why Zen meditations, and well, I want to make them bigger, because it's in this space where infinite intelligence inspires you with a vision or an idea of something better, of something creative, of something that you need to improve in your life or around you. So all you need to do is say, thank you for this vision. I don't have to show that I can do it. but I would like to do it. So I go in this direction because you showed me the way. I go in this direction. I maintain myself in this direction, but I'm not attached to it. And so I always say at the end also, you will be done. I'm not a religious person in terms of religions. I don't belong to any particular religion, and at the same time to all. But I can say, you will be done. And we have a ceremony where also it begins where it says, 2,000 years ago, Jesus the Christ gathered with his disciples to evoke the cosmic forces, which he called the Father. But it's the cosmic forces. So whichever way each one wants to see it. So I say cosmic forces, because it's a set of laws, of cosmic laws, of universal laws. May your will be done. So I don't have to show that I can do it, no, from the person, from the ego. But the ego becomes now at the service of the soul, of the whispering of the soul. And that is where I work now with both elements. You know, there's a beautiful expression. I don't remember right now who said it, but it says like, retreat deeply within and advance boldly without. No, that would be an imbalance between the feminine and the masculine forces. Retreat deeply within, go into silence, be in your vulnerable part. You know, when you understand that you're not on control as a person, and yet once you dig in there and you understand and you receive the inspiration, now go out boldly and say, this is so, even though everyone is laughing at you or is criticizing you. But it's your own total confidence in your inside inspiration. And that is very feminine, because that's why women also many times, when they have developed their feminine part, because not every woman does have that, you know, when they have developed, they have the intuition. And the men, we need to listen to them, because she feels things that we usually don't feel so easily. And now we go inside and we find it inside. And that is realizing now, to sum it up, fourth dimension. That's our purpose here, to learn in this one day of school, to realize fourth dimension in us. That means a balance between the physical, the emotional, and the mental, so that the spiritual connectiveness with ourselves, with our emotions, with our body, and so forth, can be total, and from there with other people, with nature, with animals, and so forth. And we work with the heart, and we work in presence. And the best example, says Ouspensky, to the fourth dimension, in our third dimension world, is the tree. Because the tree grows in every direction simultaneously. It grows up to the sides and into the roots. And we also can grow in all directions simultaneously, into the masculine part, into the feminine part, into the higher subtle part, into the lower instinctive part. Embraces, not denying it, and into the internal part, into the external part. We can grow into every direction, and therefore work with the heart and work with our presence. And that makes fourth dimension. And from there, now we can, we can knock at the door of fifth dimension, and we may, and more people will have it in these times of Aquarius, short experience of what fifth dimension really means, where time and space disappear, where everything is simultaneously. Whatever you think can manifest. That's why an avatar says, clouds, and wind, you stop, or you haven't been seeing, now you can see. Of course, people want to get to this point, and then they want powers from the ego again. I'm a healer. I have powers over the rain and so forth. That's not the purpose of it. It's just being in this contact, and whatever is, you will be done. So then we knock at the door and say, well, please guide me. And so everyone can have this experience and therefore enter in this kingdom of heaven, which is inside of us, and go back into it, you know, whenever you come out of it because of your distractions and your emotions and so forth, and understand this balance, your own center, the thing of rhythm, your peace in your heart, and how you can, you know, you can really share this with others. You know, that's the whole story for me. I mean, there are obviously many things to be said about it, but I don't want to have too long of a monologue and rather enter a little bit into a dialogue. And yeah, any comments, any questions, welcome. You know, we can, and you don't have to believe me anything, eh? Because nobody has it all clear, and we are all on the path of just discovering. So yeah, there's a hand raising. Go ahead.
Edgardo, excuse me.
Open your microphone.
Edgardo, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, very well.
I'm gonna unmute.
There you are.
There, go ahead, Edgardo.
Pero vamos a iniciar con la lectura del acta anterior, ¿no? Miren, buenas hace miércoles en la noche.
Okay, so Edgardo had his hand up, but he's got something playing in the background there, so we'll let him get that sorted out.
Wow. 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 Wow.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. I love what you were saying about following this vision, but not being attached to it, but just allowing it to lead you, and just staying open to that and holding that. That was for me so inspiring. One of the books I picked up this morning was A Course in Miracles. And I haven't read this book in a long time, but the page that opened was on fear. And some of that, just what you were talking about reminded me of this chapter, this short paragraph I read, which says, "The presence of fear is a sure sign that you are trusting in your own strength. The awareness that there is nothing to fear shows that somewhere in your mind, though not necessarily in a place you recognize as yet, you have remembered God and His strength, and let His strength take the place of your weakness. The instant you are willing to do this, there is indeed nothing to fear."
Beautiful. Different ways of languages. And in a way, we had someone here who lived with his family for 6 months in this place with us, and he was an expert on this miracles book, you know. And so we had also in our studies every day some part of this, and trying to understand that language, which of course is very related to known language in Christianity, for instance. And yet the essence, like it is in all traditions, the essence is always the same. And for me, this book talks a lot about of this space of connectiveness in fifth dimension, of total trust in whatever you want to call it. And one of our masters says, God is a conjunction of cosmic laws. And of course, it's only part of it also. You know, it's much more than this. Anything we can say about it is always just a part. But we begin to understand more and more, And therefore, our own emotions, like the fear, of course, can guide us. Where am I at this moment? And of course, right now, it's natural that many people have fear because of their expectation was, oh, their life will go on just like it had been, without noticing enough that in many parts of the world, life was already a total disaster, total injustice. And so something had to happen. We couldn't go on like this. So hopefully now when people come to the place and understand, yeah, nothing will be like before. Yeah, nothing should be like before, because what we have been doing the last 40 years has been really an extreme, and and consuming is fine, but the extreme not. And so all these things which now through fear will take us to this point. And then we start understanding, for instance, I just listened to some of the medical doctors who now are beginning to speak up, that actually all the controls we are taking, wash your hands 30 times a day, and keep the distance, and don't go out of your house, and all this, is just the opposite of what our immune system needs, because now it has nothing to relate to anymore, because the people who are out in the country, and where the children, they do this, in the earth, and their immune system is working well. And so, we isolate ourselves more and more from the world, just like it is, thinking that we can control out of fear, out of not knowing. It's fear really is the cause of fear is our ignorance about how life works. So that is why it's a good idea to always study each day something on how life works, and read books like this, where they tell us right away, have confidence. And for me, even the process of awakening and going into a different level of consciousness is when I have truly more confidence in life and in me. And then, well, I can admit there's a lot of things I don't know. I'm ignorant. The only thing is, we are all ignorant. The only thing is that the topic changes. Because in a world of infinite possibilities, we're all ignorant. But it's great to acknowledge this ignorance, because then we can have something to look at and study. Say, well, I don't know this, so I'm gonna investigate it. So forth. And that's but not now only on the typical level of success and whatever we are taught. Our school systems are totally obsolete. We need new teachings that teach us life, that teach us the meaning of life. And therefore, these things come into account. And if once we put these things in the school, and the child learns about meaning of life, learns about nutrition, learns about exercise, learns about a different mindset, now, all right, yes, there comes something along, but it doesn't take me out of, it doesn't put me in this hysteria, which so many people are in right now, trying to do what they were told. And well, it's an interesting moment for sure.
Thank you so much. We have a few people with their hands up. James, you're up next, and Jackie will be back. I'm sure she disappeared for a second, but she's after you, James. So James, you're on.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa, and thank you, Siegfried. I really enjoyed your talk there. In particular, the part that you spoke about division kind of resonated with me as well. Like, where you said that you see the vision and you won't question it, and you've seen the direction and you'll follow it, and not be attached to the outcome, as Melissa said as well, reiterated. And what you're speaking of reminds me very much of an affirmation I've been using for a number of years now, which have been very beneficial to me as well, which I've found on a little pamphlet. And if I may, I'll just read a few verses of it. I won't read the whole lot, but there are a few verses in it.
Let it
Just
be
for today.
hour, yeah.
Sorry?
No, I'm joking. Let it be less than an hour, the verse.
No. Just for today, I will be happy. Most folks are as happy as they make up their minds to be. Just for today, I will adjust myself to what is and not try to adjust everything to my own desires. I will take back my luck as it comes and fit myself to it. Just for today, I will try to strengthen my mind. I will study. I will learn something useful. I will not be a mental loafer. I will read something that requires effort, thought, and concentration. Just for today, I will exercise my soul in 3 ways. I will do somebody a good turn and not get found out. If anybody knows of it, it will not count. I will do at least 2 things I don't want to do just for exercise. I will not show anyone that my feelings are hurt. They may be hurt, but today I will not show it. Just for today, I will have a program. I may not follow it exactly, but I will have it. I will save myself from 2 pests, hurry and indecision. Just for today, I will have a quiet half hour all by myself and relax. During this half hour sometime, I will try to get a better perspective of my life. Just for today, I will be unafraid. Especially, I will not be afraid to enjoy what is beautiful and to believe that as I give to the world, so too the world will give to me. Thanks.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. And now, if you have to remember all of these and do it every day, it will be very stressful. So pick a few every day. Pick another few and concentrate on them. So and flow with whatever life tells you that day, because the whispering of the soul, and we don't have to wait like someone mentioned Moses at the beginning in this thing, until God speaks with a big voice from out of the clouds to us. He's speaking to us all the time, everywhere, through everything, through every person. So just let's be very aware of this, and at the same time study these beautiful things and remember a couple of them and go back to them the next day and say, today I want to focus on this. And then you'll see, like in the Taoism, they talk about let's have it simple and natural. And the Zen also, if you want a big illumination and all this stuff, no, just do, just eat your rice and wash your bowl. There's simple stuff each day, but be aware of it. And that makes life very, very rich. And at the same time, maybe we come back to this, for instance, the next day and said, there was something I didn't focus on, but it happened. Great, thank you. So yeah, everything has a meaning. Everything is good to learn and to share. Who else?
Jacque, you are up next.
Who?
Jacque, you are.
Oh, hey.
You, girl.
I wanted to ask a question, if you could expand a little bit further, Siegfried. You said ego, at some point, ego becomes in service of the soul. Could you help us understand a little bit more? Because there's so much misunderstanding of what ego is. And so when we say something like ego becomes a service to the soul, if you could just help us understand what ego is, how it develops, and then how the beauty of that service becomes.
Okay, I'm going to try to keep it simple. Because first of all, everything is part of it. There's the good God and the bad devil. In any case, the devil is the son of God, but he's not very well educated. That's all. So everything is part of it. So the ego is also part of it. And the ego, in its evolution, what is it? It's the instinct of conservation. It's the instinct of procreation. It's the instinct of maintaining life. And then in the human being, every animal has that. And we are 75% animal, right? And so, but then the human being develops the reason and his thumb and being creative. But now the reason is at the service of the ego, of the instinct, of the identification with this person, with this body. I am this body. That is the sensation. I am this body. And usually there's no more. But then we discover I'm also these emotions. And then we go on, I am also these thoughts. And we identify with this as if that was all. And that is the ego. Our identification with our basic bodies, the physical, the emotional, and the mental. My principles are these, and you better take me for this. Yeah, this is my identification with my mental ideas that I have fixed in myself. Okay. And from that, and from the instinct of survival, the ego, of course, does all kinds of things, and sometimes very nasty things, especially with the dominion of others, with the businesses, with, all kind of things. So it thinks, because of the survival, which is, the top thing, I have the right of doing anything just because of that. But then with certain moments, the person begins to question and begins to open heart and begins to evaluate much more the relationship and is happy when he could share something which was useful for someone else. And so he begins to question, what about this ego stuff? Because then we hear also, the ego has to be killed and has to be, shut down. And some currents of Buddhism still talk this way. That was Pisces. But then one of my masters said, well, the ego is nothing else than like a purebred racehorse, but not yet what would you say? Not yet
tamed.
And so you can tame it and ride on it, and it takes you far and fast, or it steps on you as a wild horse, and that's the same thing with the ego. The problem is not the ego in itself. The problem is that the ego dominates you, your actions, your expression, and so forth. And then it's an imbalance. But in the process of wanting better answers and better guidance, and you listen and you read these things and about life and about the mystery of life, and you also hear, the ego is bad, but then you hear someone else say, no, the ego in itself is not bad. It just needs to be tamed. It just needs to be integrated. And then there's an integration, and Ken Wilber describes that perfectly in his book, The Project of Atman. It's a big book and a lot of terms, very difficult to understand. But it describes this process of the ego. Here's an easier book, which is the Consciousness Without Borders. That's a small book, and that's much easier to read, and it's a help for this, because the first border is our shadow part of it, our sombra, nuestra sombra. But then the ego, it does its thing, but the observer, because become more and more observant of ourselves, and then the observer says, oh, you really acted very egotistically here. You could have shared. There was no need for it. Oh, is that so? So we call it conscience, right? And with this awakening of conscious and then of consciousness, then the ego said, Bart, they tell me I have to die. I don't want to die because that's all I got. And then we start making a deal with the ego. Say, oh, no, you're fine. You have a perfect place, because that is where I am expressing myself through. And yeah, the survival instinct is something important. It has to be revered, but it's not all. And the pleasure is not all, and so forth, what we have been talking about. And then the ego says, oh, really? So what's my function then? Oh, well, you can express because I inspire you, because the soul always whispers where we have to go, what we can do better, and where we can be creative, and so forth. And now the soul, the ego starts to listen. Before it wouldn't listen, and there's a big conflict between the soul and the ego. And in fact, this conflict leads to a lot of diseases. No? It's an energetic conflict. But as we go along, and that's why, for instance, the book of with the miracles and so forth, as we go along and have more confidence and we learn more about these things, then the ego starts going along with it. And instead of saying, hey, I'm the one who did, and I'm the one who has to show that I could do it, then the ego says, what am I good for? How can I serve in this whole process of you being more and more awake towards your true being? And then ego and soul integrate, and now that is also feminine and masculine balance. And now the person is much more balanced. It's not so reactive anymore. Of course, will have no, what is the word for rancor? If you have a anger that is not processed and
Discordance.
I think it's more than that. It's like after someone didn't say hello one day, and after 30 years, you still say, oh, he didn't salute me, and you get the
repressed, retained,
pent up anger.
Pent up, yeah.
I will look it up. It says
you're holding on to the anger, not letting go.
Yeah, and it gets bottled up. It's just an example, and so it dominates. But now it says, oh, I can forgive. I can be here. I can let go of all of this, and that's why, like for instance, in the ceremony we say, thank you for all you have given us, and your will be done. And your will has been done. And this way is like in Mexico we say, borrón y cuenta nueva. That is, take everything off the slate and start anew right now. Let it go. And that is when the ego is integrated and can say that honestly. And there's no enemy. There's no nothing anymore to, how am I going to do it? How am I going to tell him that I was really angry about it? It's already gone. No, then the ego says, all right, here I am. What am I good for? And this way it serves the purpose, because we still act through our physical, emotional, and mental body. And it's precious. It's not to suppress, none of it, but it's to integrate, to balance.
Mayra.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So Mayra had her hand up, followed by Miles. Mayra, thank you.
I think the word it would be resentment, no, for rencor, when it's hard to forget and forgive. I'll give the chance to Miles, since I have the opportunity of talking with Siegfried almost twice a week. But before we are done, I would like for Siegfried to, since he's an amazing artist, if he can show us how to release emotions from our kidneys, pronouncing the letter U. And I just leave that to the end, and I'll give the word to Miles. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayra.
Thank you, Mayra, and thank you, Reverend Baumbach. So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on Treaty 7 territory in Alberta, Canada, the home of the Niitsitapi people, the Blackfoot Confederacy. One of the things you said was, we have to listen even when people are saying, here's the science, this is what the science says. But inside we're thinking, no, I don't know, that doesn't seem right. The same is true, I've found, with what I've learned from spiritual leaders in churches and elsewhere, and they'll say something, and I'm thinking, no, that doesn't seem right. And then, sure enough, as time goes on, I realized, oh, that feeling was correct. So, for example, I had the honor of participating in a thunderpipe ceremony, a sacred circle, with my indigenous friends and neighbors. And this is all about this ceremony of this thunderpipe that you smoke, and it's passed around in a very solemn ceremony, is all about truth, because the pipe represents truth. And that ceremony was as sacred a sacrament as anything I've ever experienced. And in fact, I've learned the true meaning of the Bible and my true understanding of Jesus only because I've encountered my indigenous friends and neighbors. So I guess one question is, so for example, I once just recently was saying, we have to be concerned about Christocentrism, being Christo or Christ-centric to the point of actually not being Christian, if that's a word that somebody wants to use. And by using that phrase, Christocentric, I really irritated somebody, and they flashed back at me, and I realized, okay, their point was valid, you know, that indeed Christ is the center of this religion, Christianity, and I need to be more precise in what I'm trying to do. So to be more precise, there's the Creed of Athanasia, or the Athanasian Creed. Now, I'm not a theologian. I don't have any divinity certificates or anything. However, certain things have made me have to travel this path. In summary, the Creed of Athanasia says basically, if you don't get baptized, if you don't profess Jesus Christ as your Savior, you're going to damnation. And so I don't buy that, okay? And so anyway, and then there's another very significant religious leader who's written about pagans and saying things like, making general statements that pagans are, you know, they have child sacrifice. And he referenced the religions of the Incas, the Aztecs, the Mayans, and purports that they were doing all this terrible child sacrifice. And I just, before you came on, I said, I don't buy that, because there were mass death, when the conquistadors and others came over from Europe, brought a lot of disease. So there would have been a lot of death. And sure, they'll find mass graves in some of these ancient sites where the Incas, the Mayans, the Aztecs have disappeared. But you will also now find mass graves on an island very close to the center of New York City, as they're contending with the COVID virus. So do you have any words of wisdom as to confronting these disparaging statements? Because really, the reason Indigenous people will be disparaged is because the powers that be are still trying to impose their spirituality on them. So they'll concoct such stories, is my belief. Anyway, that's kind of long-winded, but thank you.
No, it was necessary to make yourself clear. I think it's perfect, because, and I don't know how much wisdom I can apport to this, but I can give my angle and the way I interact with these things. And to start out with, I mean, for me, if we talk about Christ, we talk about Buddha, we talk about a consciousness, a level of consciousness, a fifth dimension consciousness, where I'm the son of man, or I'm the son of God, my father and I am the same. And then what was the message of the Christ? 2,000 years ago, because they were stuck in all these law things of the Judaism, you know, the law of Moses. And what he was always saying is, you know, you control others with your laws, but you don't apply it to yourself. That's what gained him so many enemies. And what was his true mission to the people is, you can enter directly in contact with the Father. And yeah, I'm here in the media to show you how it is, but it's not the person. But that's what we have understood so wrong. Everything went around the person, but then the teaching was totally forgotten. Because he said, you know, when they asked him, what is the first law that we have to obey? And he says, well, love God above everything else. But then there's another one with equal value. Love everyone else as you love yourself. Okay, so that was the message. And that makes you enter directly into the kingdom of heaven, which is not out there. It's not after death. It's right here, right now, in yourself, with wherever you are. Okay, so that I understand what his message. So what have we done with it? Because of, yeah, I mean, everyone understands things the way they understand. That's it. That's a reality. That doesn't mean that one who has a certain understanding is more right than the other. Just in the morning, we talked about one phrase of the avatar of this age. He said, what is truth? Truth is the combination of all truth and of all lies. Because there's nothing outside of it. So all the traditions, all the belief systems have their own truth, but they're only part of it. So people have started to interpret what was the teaching of Christ, and they made the same thing. Well, the rules are this, and if you don't obey by these rules and don't just go to the part of the Inquisition, I mean, what had Inquisition to do with the teaching of Christ? Nothing at all. You know, you think different than me, and so you go, you're going to be burned with, you know, green wood. And so nobody remembered any of the teaching of Christ, but they put, you know, a big thing there. We are the representatives of the teaching of Christ. And that is so up to the day. That's why we have fanaticism in all the religions, because of people interpretations. Even in the Christian religion, we have around 20,000 different religions or sects who all say that my interpretation of the Bible is the correct ones, and I will be of the 144,000 who will be saved, and everyone else will go to hell. So it's the same thing was we apply to the child, you know. If you don't obey I don't know how you say it in English, the boo-boo man will come at night and will move your bed, you know. So we apply it. If you don't behave like I tell you, which is my interpretation of what this wisdom has told me, but since I want to control you, I will threaten you with hell. You know, this story we have believed, and now we have to stop believing it, because we are in new paradigms, and we have to get to this inner feeling and take responsibility for this. You know, if my inner intuition tells me, it's not with me, you don't have to attack that. You don't have to he's fine in what he is. But for me, it's not so. That's why I also say here, don't believe me anything. You know, you just study and observe. We are just sharing. It's not like saying this is the way it is. I'm sure this. If anything of this is useful for you, take it and use it. And from that moment, it's yours. It's not even saying, well, he said, no, now I am saying it because I understand this. It's my own intuition. So, and that is the same thing with the traditions. And of course, the different places on earth and the different traditions, they have their own forms, because of the customs, because of their belief systems, because of what the medicine man had told them, or whatever. you know. We have so many forms, but the essence of this is always the search for understanding life, the mystery of life, and understanding truth. So when they share that, all of them share that. But that doesn't mean that the form is the only one, and that's what still happens. No, my God is Jehovah. No, my God is Allah. My God is this, and he's better than yours. Huh? He's more powerful than yours. So, you know, that is what we, in our ignorance as human beings, we still do up to the day. And that's why, but it's because of our now understanding. And yes, I understand people have to hold on to things that they understand in the moment. But what we can stop doing is imposing our understanding to others. We can share it, you know, take from it what you want, but nothing else. And while sharing it, we enrich all of us, because, oh, that angle I hadn't seen yet. That's interesting. Oh, thank you. Now my vision is widened in this way. And that is why, yes, Aquarius will be an age of really new ways of approaching all this, and it will be combining the wisdom of the East with the science of the West when it becomes true science. the part of the spirituality which goes together with the science. And in this way, we now have synthesis, and Aquarius is a moment of synthesis. Well, we learn from everybody, we expand our vision, we go into fourth dimension, into every direction. And of course, sometimes it looks like previous beliefs that we have are now not any longer sustainable. And we have to accept that too, you know, and we have to accept, well, if my belief was so, you know, we're in a very unidirectional, but in this way it cannot be sustained, because when I open, now there's another standpoint. But we have to look for the in between 2 points, what is the middle and up. That is the synthesis. How can I look at the things from a higher standpoint? And now I understand both of them. And in fact, on the mental plane, we develop not only what we have now with the left brain, the horizontal 1 and 1 is 2, and black is black and white is white. That's only one way of thinking. But also then we have a horizontal and a vertical plane of thinking, and we have finally a cubic plane of thinking. Mozart, for instance, said, I'm riding in a carriage and a whole symphony comes down to me in just an instant. And then I have to go and write it down so that people can understand it. But this is the cubic thinking. It comes down all at the same time. And we all have had this. You know, it just comes an inspiration, a thought, a vision, but we cannot explain it right away, because we need to find the sequential way of the horizontal thought form in order to transmit it to others. But we all have this in our head, and so we expand in this direction, and from there we understand more and more. And seemingly the previous belief system is denied, but it's not that it's denied, it's integrated also, it's part of it, but it's not by himself anymore the only thing that stands out. So that's our evolutionary process where we are all in. That's what I can say about that.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to add to that what's streaming into me while you're talking. And I just pulled up this quote by John Keats, which is, beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth and all you need to know. And one of the things about, I'm a visual artist, so I have often that experience of being, I call it downloaded with something, a vision or an image or
all the things behind you is part of what you do?
These are Native American, Hopi, Tsimshian, and Haida art. No, these are not my art. Another time you can see that. But what was coming to me is when one receives information, I'll just call it information, whether it's visual, audio, words, whatever. there is this synthesizing that into the dimension of the physical. And what I find fascinating about it is having to let go of the attachment to perfectionism, because as we know, the vision could come in as something perfect because it's from God or creation. But when we actually take it on the journey of creation ourselves with our hands and our spirit and our body and our minds and our emotions, it's never perfect. And I find that fascinating. You know, it'll come, there's information, and that's why I love this quote about beauty, because we're striving after beauty. And of course, beauty is all around us. But we have to recognize it. And we need to slow down and be present with it to recognize it. So there's always this kind of interesting push-pull, you know, of flowing with the vision to create the beauty and letting go of our attachment to never quite arriving. It's this ongoing journey always.
Because we want to put what is our idea of perfection into this physical manifestation. And for me, the most perfect manifestation is nature in itself, is the greatest artist. And yet there's also this expression, which is something to chew on the rest of our lives, which one of our masters said, and it is something very short. It says, everything is necessary, perfect, and related. And yeah, in the essence, that is so. And so even in the different expressions of manifestations, at that particular moment, it's already perfect. It's already necessary. It's related, and it's always in the same time in movement for an even better expression. No? So both things are true, that never anything that we do is perfect here, and at the same time it is. Because it's already there. It's our thing. This is, and I can just say thank you. And then the next expression, how well I trained a little bit more my ability and make it a little bit better, but it's already perfect. But that doesn't mean that I go, well, so there's nothing to be done. It's already perfect. No, it's the same things at the same time, which makes me explore all the time and yet have plain satisfaction with what is there and enjoy and can truly be grateful for this. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Jacque has her hand up. Thank you.
I don't know how quickly you can answer me, but when we were talking about religions, I remembered, I had this vivid memory of control in the home and using Papa Dios. You know, Papa Dios watching you, your Father God is watching, you know, and that was the way to control the children. You know, I'm leaving, but remember, Papa Dios always watching. And so we were always afraid that we were always being watched and monitored and going to be reported on. God was going to report to our mom what we were doing, and that sense of control. And through my studies and my own work and introspection and my own spirituality, I've started to remember so much of myself as a child and feel so much of that, how I used to think, a remembering of who I was and a more connection of why I felt I was forced to forget of who I was. So what I'm asking Siegfried is, can you help us understand the consciousness of children? They're freshly here. They just came from source. And we, society and parenting and culture, forces so much forgetting of children. Could you help us understand truly the consciousness of children?
From our own child consciousness, still present, you know, doesn't, and it should not disappear with age. That's why Christ said, you know, be like a child so you can get into the kingdom of heaven. And what is this consciousness of a child? Well, there are these stories out, you know, when a child is small, parents are God. They believe everything father says, mom says, And then they grow up a little bit and they start to see the hypocrisy in some of the things, and they start doubting, and then they begin to be rebellious, and then they take their own way, and then they find the hypocrisy in society, in the judges, in the priests, in the politicians, and so forth. And many then, they don't know what to do with that anymore, and they go to drugs because they are totally frustrated because of their first vision was, my parents are God. And the parents, even then, if they used God as you know, the father who is watching you and he will punish you, so they become afraid of God. And yes, of course, as a human being, and when they say God is in our image and likeness, so we want to imagine him, and that's why Christ said, the cosmic forces, I call them Father. And yeah, the Father image is the closest thing that works for us, because we can see each other and say, yeah, if he's like us and the Father, so he must be the Father, but he is maybe a severe Father, because he says you go to hell if you don't obey me. But that was the interpretation. Now, if we look at it in a wider, and that is what's happening in these days, our understanding of the cosmic forces through science and religion and art and philosophy becomes even more and more wider, so we can get out of this space of just seeing him as a person with a beard sitting on the cloud and Orion and, you know, all this stuff. That's fine, you know, who wants to see it that way? That's just their personal way to relate, and that's perfectly good. You know, but we don't have to put it on others, and less on children, because the children have their own, very own way of connecting and observing and feeling. In fact, usually the first 7 years, they are so sensitive. They talk with angels. You know, they are in touch with things that we say, you're crazy. You know? And then we close it down on them. What we need to do, because evolution goes ahead, so children will advance and will know more and better things than us. Otherwise, we would go backwards. And we need to see that. And that's why we have to study children, study in astrologically. I do it with the ideology and so forth, and observe them and see what are their tendencies. Are they more emotional? Are they more mental? Or they are more kinesthetic? What is their way of learning and so forth? And understand they are sponges. So don't ever use the threat to gain what you want to know. There's the story of the mother with a child, you know, 6 years old, and she sends him to get the milk every day. But he gets distracted, you know, and with the animals on the road and this and that, and so he always comes back when it's already dark. So the mother tells him, oh, you don't know what is in the dark. You have to be careful because there's something, you know, some monsters that can, and whatever, you know what I mean. So the child never comes back late again. But now he's 18 years old, 20 years old, and he still doesn't go out in the dark. So what does the mother do now? She said, it's possible. He's already, you know, young adult. He needs to not have fear of the dark anymore. So she gives him an amulet. Take this, and when you go out in the dark, hold tight to this, and nothing will happen to you. Now he has not only one fear, he has two, to lose his amulet, right? So this is the kind of thing we do because of our ignorance. So study the children, learn what they want to explore, be with them. Just be careful that they don't go into too dangerous things, but let them explore danger also, and be there as a support, as a friend. And as to schooling, I tell you, some of you know my daughter Angelica. She is Mirabai Seva. She travels all over the world giving concerts. When she was 6 years old, she, because of other, relatives, oh, you're German, so she should go to the German school. So we put her into the German school. She didn't know German yet. And then the mathematics teacher, because that was the only thing they strictly gave only in German. So she didn't understand. And she is a double Gemini, so totally distracted. And so the teacher came with me and said, you have to call her attention because this girl, she won't go anywhere. And I said to the teacher, don't count on me on that. She will learn in her own moment. I don't care. Okay, yeah. So another 6 months went by and the teacher came back and she said, I can't believe it. We had an exam. She didn't copy and she did it well. He said, I know she's intelligent. She will learn what she needs to learn. I'm not worried about the system. And now, see, she inspires thousands of people. And that should we do with our children, to see what is their talent and enhance the talent, even if it's different. If you're a lawyer, don't make your son a lawyer. If he wants to do music, don't say to him, you won't earn money with this, like it's usual. Do what you love. The money will follow. That's a book on it. No? So, well, I have to leave because I have another session with leaders here that I meet every day and we inspire each other. And so thank you very much for this opportunity and maybe we see some other time.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing so much with us.
Thank you, Siegfried. I think we're going to have to continue if you allow us to join us here for a second time and show us a few of the techniques of Taoistas, how to release any kind of negativity from our vital organs through the sound of our voices.
Yes, sure. We can do that.
Yes, we'll have to schedule it. Thank you very much. It was an honor.
Dr. Siegfried, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias, doctor. Y nos vemos la próxima vez. So good to see you and look forward to seeing you next time. And thank you for your beautiful wisdom and your spirit and all your generosity. Thank you.
Los amo a todos.
Muchas gracias.
See you next time.
Gracias.
Love you too.
That's awesome. Jacque and Mayra, thank you so much for inviting this wonderful man to come and share his spirit with us. And who do we have next week in the lineup?
Next week, we have my friend, radio personality Jacque Morales.
Awesome.
Joining us and discussing parenting, her spiritual practice, and the work that she does in the inner city with the children.
Fantastic. Beautiful. So great to hang out with you guys this morning and just keep being wow. And we'll see you soon. Wow.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you, Melissa. We love you. I love you.
I'm going to my studio, so see you later.
All right. And I would like to invite everyone to please stay. Please stick around if you can. We've got a really wonderful segment coming up next, which is on. We've got a lot of different things that, in one. Let's see, we get folks coming in from the waiting room here. But it's basically around feeding everyone nutritious, whole food-based, vegan, plant-based food, and in the process, ending pandemics, right? And then that is the, kind of the core or the center of it, right? The most visible part, shall we say, the most immediate. But it expands out from there to solar radiation management, cooling the planet through solar radiation management. Because if we're going to feed everyone ongoingly, we need a planet that's cool enough to support the growing of food, growing of plants, and then likewise in the realm of collective intelligence, collective superintelligence, in fact, and this community of communities that we're in the process of building. So what I'm going to say about all of that. And first, I want to welcome everyone who just joined. Benjamin and Suzanne, great to see you. Welcome, Mark. Welcome, Amanda. I am going to pause recording from our previous segment and just